drivers knew Monza would be a tough one to stay out of trouble, and above it all, Tullio shined. But the lessons from last week will still be valuable, because today marks the lone oval round of the season. While it might be April Fool's Day, no one wants this to become their Joker round. So let's see who brushed up on the circle tracks as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL Indy Pro 2000 series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Iowa is something of an outlier in the world of recently built ovals. Let's head to our track guide to find out how this cookie cutter breaks the mold.
Newton, Iowa, a smaller town situated in the middle of Jasper County. Perhaps best known for being the former home of Maytag and Iowa Speedway, where we find ourselves today. Iowa Speedway is perhaps the best known oval out there not to have a NASCAR Cup Series date. Its 0.88 mile layout has offered a ton of exciting short track races over the years. The Xfinity Series, Gander Trucks, IndyCar, ARCA, and Whelen Modifieds all make trips here every summer. USAC, Brand-Am Sports Cars, and several other series have come here over the years, and the track is used all year round for driving schools and other events on the oval and road course. Rusty Wallace helped design Iowa, and he patterned it off a track he saw a lot of success at over the years, Richmond, but it's a little larger and faster. The 12 to 14 degrees of progressive banking in these wide corners really can help get things going. Just watch out for the bumps, as the Midwestern winters have taken a toll on the surface. And a real quick did you know? This track was one of the first built without concrete exterior track walls. It was completely designed with the safer barrier in mind. Enjoy the show at Iowa Speedway.
Well, with this being another track that has traditionally seen IndyCar race here, DJ, this feels appropriate to take those Indy pros out to the track.
It does indeed, Joe, and these Indy pros are going to have a blast out here, but it's not going to be without having their hands full as well. Iowa is one of those circuits that can really present multiple lines and multiple opportunities for open-wheel cars. You can run down low in these Indy pros, but the car has a tendency to get a little bit squiggly. Watching some of the guys who have been out before, we've either seen losing it on the exit of the corner, or just a lot of tire squeal as they try to keep the car down. Running the midline seems to be the safest way, but there's also a chance to run up super high and try to carry maximum amounts of momentum around the corner. So a multitude of lines for these drivers to really, really think about. But Iowa is such a short track that they don't have hardly any time to think. We're looking at lap times just over 21 seconds, and just the minute you get out of the corners, you've got to be setting up for the next one.
Well, this will be fun to watch and to see who adapts. Could be a decisive round of the championship. But let's also talk about our sponsors while we have the chance, because today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consultants, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
The PRL Indy Pro 2000 series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. So the championship after that has been looking pretty straightforward, because we've only had one round in. And Tullio leads the way with his win. Christoph Herbino, who missed out on a championship in the sports cars and the prototypes last season. Let's see if he can maybe try and take it to Alessandro here in open wheelers and claim his first crown. Connor Wagner is behind them, with Mark McDonald sitting in fourth, and then Owen Watts rounding out our top five. We also have an AM championship in this series, and there is a lot of AMs that have shown up this season here, DJ.
There really are, and you can see Hugo Galaz there on the top of the standings. He did a fantastic job last time out, really placing himself in the top of that AM category. Aaron Reeves behind him with Lucio Vargas in third. Danny Duchesne is in fourth with Wolfgang Loader there in fifth.
Now for our team's championship after the first round, up at the top of that is Indy's Racing. Delta Sport, despite having so many drivers up towards the top, only have second place right now, but that could, of course, change. Uragon Racing sits in third with Delta Sport's U4K team in the fourth place, and their Freedom USA AKS team sitting in fifth. And as you can see, it's quite tight between third and fifth currently. So expect that to change before this is done. We'll have qualifying kicking off in just a moment. And before we get to that, DJ, what's our race details actually like?
Well, we are in the second of 10 races in this Indy Pro 2000 series, and we've got a little bit of a different style of race here today. It's going to be a heat race format, so all these drivers are going to head out and do qualifying. That will set the grid for a series of heats. Those will be 12 laps apiece, and the top 5 from those heats will advance automatically to the A main later tonight. Everybody who doesn't make the field, well, they'll be relegated back to the B main, which will be a 25-lap race, and of that, the top 10 will advance. And then we head on to the feature race, which is 45 laps in a total of 30 cars. You don't make that top 30-car field, you will not be racing for the rest of the night. And this is the crucial part about all of that, Joe, is that there are no yellow flags thrown at any point. So you've got to be very careful of any sort of spins happening in front of you. Now, everything else in the series is what we're used to. Open setup, so drivers are able to tweak and tune a little bit, and that's going to come into effect on if they're preferring to run the low or medium or high lines here tonight. They can adjust their setups for that. You do get penalties. At 11 incident points, you'll have a drive-through, and at 25, you will be disqualified. Excuse me, 20, you'll be disqualified. And as always, there are some bonus points up for grabs tonight for fastest lap pole, and if you are able to escape Iowa with 3 incidents or less.
Looks like Tertulio's a Verstappen fan, as his helmet seems to imply. The Floridian currently second on the timing sheets. He was at the top for a long time. Christoph Herbino right now has the fastest lap in the warm-up session, so he's coming back swinging. Ethan Oring, though, is one that I was not expecting. He's an AM driver, actually, and is our quickest AM driver in the warm-up, is only about 3/100ths off of our quickest time. It's what amuses me is compared to the trucks that we watched last night, the NASCAR trucks in the PRL, DJ, we were at iRacing Super Speedway. There was about a second there was a second and a half difference from first to last there. Here, there's only 6/10. That's how tight it is in this field.
Well, Joe, that's what happens when you are dealing with a short track that is less than a mile long. This is exactly the kind of stuff that, especially back in the day, you used to see a lot of these feeder series on, and Iowa just presents one of those challenges. You've got to get everything exactly right, and those mere hundredths that you talked about, hundredths and thousandths of a second, that represents just a little bit more input on the wheel. It represents just a slight liftoff, but that can be the difference between success and failure.
Speaking of the difference between success and failure, you know, as I was reading the drivers' discussion before this race and see what they had to say, since not many of them are necessarily typical oval drivers, some seem to find the consensus that qualifying is going to be quite important today. I mean, those heat races are not terribly long, and I can't imagine passing is going to be all that easy out here. So, I mean, how important do you think it'll be? Do you think it's going to be either you're on pole or you have no hope of win, or is there still a shot?
I think there's a shot, Joe, but it's going to be a relatively slim shot, especially in the heat races, because the way these are set up is you've got to take a couple laps to get the tires fully up to temperature. And before that, you're going to be at a real loss of grip, and I think the aero push for these cars is going to be a big thing. So there's not going to be a whole lot of passing that goes on in those first maybe 5 laps or so, as everybody just kind of gets to grips with their cars. After that, you may see a little bit of it come into play, but Iowa's not the easiest track to pass on. You're basically spending more than half your lap in the corners, and so you're not really getting full effect of the draft because you're getting buffeted by aero wash. And so the farther up the field you can start, that just means that you've got a better chance to advance on. And the other thing is, if you start far up in the field, you're less likely to run into an incident because you've got fewer cars behind you.
All right, we're getting ready to head off into our qualifying session, as it has been quite a cloudy day here, and that has kept the temperatures very cool. Looks like we have moved over to that, and already drivers pretty much immediately take to the circuit. There you can see 77 Fahrenheit, and that's only going to get colder as we are moving off into the night in this race session. The sun just setting behind the plethora of clouds.
And that's going to be something that drivers are going to be very much thinking about. We've heard some discussion in the pre-race saying nobody try to throw a big move down into turn one on cold tires. It may not work out well. And so as we watch here, Christopher Richards making his laps around here in this solo car qualifying. He looks like he's going to be one of the first to cross the line.
One of our AM drivers. I also see Owen Watts coming through. And Watts actually goes quickest provisionally. Gunderson just behind him by half a tenth. Now Joey Haynes comes in, and he manages to take the provisional pole away. They all cycle through. They get 4 laps to try and go their quickest possible, and it is the fastest lap that counts. It's not an average out. It is just whoever gets the solo fastest lap. Owen Watts back up to the top spot in his second time around. Now DeTulio is in the mix. He goes up by a whole tenth over Watts.
And Frank Nguyen there currently sitting 9th. He is going to be one to watch tonight. If we remember last season, he had a very good run through the field at Phoenix. He's going to want to keep an eye on as Connor Wagner now goes to the top of the charts.
And DeTulio and Watts are now tied down to the thousandths of a second for second place, but DeTulio is marginally ahead. iRacing does count it farther down than those thousandths of a second, but our timing and scoring, unfortunately, is not able to show us what the actual times are. Beyond that, this is Matthew Gunderson all the way up in 6th overall, but he is our highest AM driver right now.
And there you see DeTulio putting in a very, very fast time, but Rod Clenard coming up to get close to him as well, only 4 thousandths of a second. Here comes Holland across the line. Holland unable to improve on that last lap.
Still waiting for a few big names to get out there. Stephen Verity, Herberto has yet to set a time. This is Doherty sitting in 32nd, and looks like that final and 4th lap not going to be quicker for him. I'm watching Christoph Herberto now to see if he manages to put a quick time in. Looks like he's just starting his flyers. That was Cranefoos on screen, and now Galaz up to 39th now that he manages to set a competitive lap.
And here comes the Californian Ethan Lamp. He's going to cross the line, able to go about 2 tenths faster there, so that'll bump him up to 9th. And here is Herberto, as you were talking about, Joe. Herberto crosses the line with the 21.6.
It's only going to be good enough for 22nd, but that's his first lap. From what we've seen, the drivers do need to get wound up a bit, get the tires up to temperature. As the Benelux driver, look at that beautiful sunset in the background. Just doesn't have any time to focus on that, though. Definitely hugging the bottom line. And as he comes through, it is going to be a 21.4. That's definitely quicker. That's up to 10th. Still not quite where I'm sure he wants to be.
And Ethan Oring there coming out with a 21.846 on his first lap. But here we go with Herberto again. You can see just how clinical he is here, Joe. The car's not moving around a lot. He's just letting it slide up the track, minimizing any tire rub that he's got. And he gets it down to a 21.414.
That's up to 5th place. He's less than a tenth off of the pole. Is this last lap going to be quick enough? We're watching Aaron Roofs finally put one on the board. And we jump back to Herberto. The 92 around 3 and 4. Smooth as you like off the corner. And it is quicker. It's a 21.3. And that is not going to put him into the top 4, the top 2 rows. He still stays in 5th despite the big improvement.
Oh, that's going to be upsetting for Herbino, but here comes Aaron Roofs as he's starting on one of his flyers here. He's currently in 32nd with a 21.7, sends it through the corners. All the drivers seeming to favor that lower line here through qualifying. Roofs lets the car run up a little higher than I would expect, but is able to go faster with a 21.566.
Wow, all the way up to 18th for Aaron. Our highest AM is currently Andy Spicer in 6th. Roofs also racing within that group. 10 seconds left, so this might be our last lap counted as he crosses the line with just a few to spare. 21.457 up to 11th. Nicely done to the 26 car. Okay, then. We're waiting for them to grid up in the first heat of the night, as we will have 3 heats out here today that they are going to be competing, 4 heats that they're going to be competing in this evening. And looks like they are lining up now. So on the poll for our first heat of the evening, it is going to be Connor Wagner. Christoph Herbino starts second on this grid with Ethan Lamp in third. Mark McDonald starts fourth and Joey Haynes in fifth. First half of the field, DJ, is rounded out by Michael Broomhead.
And in the second half of the field will be Owen McLaughlin starting out in 7th, followed by Adam Wright and Julio Palacio in 9th. Gonzalo Munoz will be 10th, and bringing up the back row will be Hugo Galez and Tyler Gore.
12 drivers taking part in this race, and only 5 are automatically sent to the feature race. So that's the bubble you need to worry about. 5th and higher won't have to take part in the consolation to make the big show. And if you finish farther down than that, then you're going to have to race your way in the B main. So get a glimpse at the new iRacing pace car that has just been released that they're going to be using here in the Indy Pro 2000 series for the PRL. And up at the front of this group, Connor Wagner already has himself out there waiting for Christoph Herbino to join him on the outside of the front row. Then we should be able to get going. We'll get 2 pace laps around here. I wonder how important that's going to be to the drivers and who is going to be using those pace laps, DJ, to prep the car and get it all ready to go.
Well, I've got to think that the drivers are going to be using as much time as they can to get those tires up to speed. Track temperature still hovering at about 76 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very, very chilly for an oval like this. So they're going to have to be very careful. And I think one of the things that's going to be interesting about this is that because of those cold temperatures, there may be a slight favorite being played to the outside lane. Getting the cars down low so quickly into heating up those tires may prove a little bit hard on corner exit. But if you're riding that high side, if you're starting to the outside, it's going to be a little bit easier on the tires and you're not going to have as much room for error. So that may play into their advantage.
Not seeing a whole lot of drivers trying to weave. A few definitely trying to brake and accelerate. They can do that to a certain degree. They are allowed to try and get them heated up. There we see as we were riding on board with McDonald, he was trying to make sure and put a little bit of heat into those tires. First one that is outside the bubble is Michael Broomhead in that 6th spot and the double aught. So he is the one that really needs to try and get at least one car to advance. There we ride on board with Michael, looking up ahead. So the Canadian sizing up his competition. And again, there are all sorts of levels of experience. This is very much like IndyCar, and that you have those who are much stronger at ovals with lots of experience and those who maybe are a bit wet behind the ears at this sort of discipline. The pace car now through 3 and 4, and Wagner will have control as Connor waits for it to disappear into pit lane. There it goes. Wagner waits. Sandy is off. Green flag is out for the first heat of the night for the PRL Indy Pro 2000 League. And it looks like it's going to be a fight for second down to the first corner between Herbino and Lamp. Lamp holds the low side, and off the corner, that shorter distance actually pays dividends.
It does indeed, but Herbino trying to stick with it. I have to say, Herbino was very, very staggered there at the start. Not the traditional thing, but there you see that high line coming into play. Christoph Herbino able to get a lot of good momentum on the outside and secure second position.
Was really riding up next to the wall. Lamp has to chop off Mark McDonald in fourth as they come off the corner. Top five still with Joey Haynes in that fifth position. He's being chased by Broomhead, who's having connection issues. Oh, and he gets a tip. Broomhead's going to almost go around. Broomhead saves it. Fantastic stuff from the double lot, but unfortunately no caution to bring him back together.
A great bit of car control there from Michael Broomhead, but as you said, no caution, so he is going to have to try to do it all right here. But as we continue to focus on the front of the field, Wagner continues to lead from Herbino and Lamp. It looked like Lamp may have had a run on Herbino about a lap ago, but those chances starting to fade a little bit as Herbino starts to settle into a good rhythm.
On the backstretch once again, starting to see that dirty air play a part in this as they all become relatively equidistant. Mark McDonald still clinging as the top four break away. Haynes instead now has Owen McLaughlin behind him in the number 90, trying to challenge for that transfer spot. Haynes actually the highest AM driver in this heat currently.
He is indeed. He's going to be happy about that, especially considering Hugo Galaz not in one of the transfer positions. As we look out the back of Joey Haynes, McLaughlin just trying to do anything here to get on by, but as you said, Joe, the dirty air just playing all kinds of havoc on these cars.
Oh, we had a car in the wall, Adam Wright, that you can see in the background, and he's going to collect a number more, unfortunately. Looks like Tyler Gore among those. Munoz maybe barely escaped that. Let's take a quick look, see if we can identify who all made contact.
So there is right in the center of your screen. You can see the car just starting to drift up a little bit, hits the wall, tries to catch it, gets into it there, gets on the brakes. That's exactly what you want to do, but those drivers behind just not lifting off, and bada bing, bada boom, everybody gets hit.
Hugo Galaz, I think one of those that maybe had slight contact in that, but Wright and Gore are now in pit lane. We're down to 5 to go. Back up to the front. Look at this. Herbino is actually closed in and is now starting to put the screws to Connor Wagner.
He is indeed, and because he's running a little bit closer, Joe, I think he's having to lift ever so slightly, adapt his line. That's allowed for Ethan Lamp to catch up a little bit, bringing that gap down to about 0.2 of a second behind him. So a three-way battle almost developing here. You can see off of the corner just how much of the track Herbino's taken.
It's getting a little sketchy up here. Hopefully these drivers can actually make it to the finish as hard as they're pushing. Coming across the line, now down to 3 to go. Wagner pulling along his teammate, Christoph Herbino, who drifts way up off the corner, but he keeps it out of the wall. Great bit of speed coming down the back stretch. Enters higher than his teammate. Wagner, though, has that valuable track position. 2 to go, and he is still our leader.
He does, but Herbino is driving this exactly how you want to do it. You enter in the corner off of the dirty air. You poke your nose out to the outside to put some clean air on the right front of that wing, and then about mid-corner you drift down and get up behind your opponent's draft. That'll help you get a good slingshot down the back straight. Herbino is certainly closing here, but I don't think he's got the time.
White flag is out for the first heat of the night. Connor Wagner retaining the top position ahead of Christoph Herbino. Herbino still finding that car washing out horribly off of turn 2. Far, far too back for any hopes of a pass. So Connor Wagner comes off of 4 and takes the victory on the first heat with Herbino second, Lamp third, fourth goes to Mike McDonald, and then fifth to Owen McLaughlin. Last to advance, but barely over Joey Haynes, who finished 7 thousandths behind him. Palacio, Galaz, Munoz, Broomhead, Wright, and Gore will head off into the consolation race. All right, let's see how things go in the second heat of the night. Alessandro Di Tullio, our winner from the first round, will start on the pole here. Andy Spicer starts in second. Frank Nguyen, the dark horse, will start from third. And Takeshi Kita, who loves to climb through the field, will start P4. Doesn't need to for this round necessarily. Brett Barrett will be fifth, and Tyler Scarali will be sixth.
Nick Horvath will be starting off in 7th, followed by J.R. Williams in 8th. Neil Alexander will line up behind them, and flanking him will be David Hebert in 10th. Dave Peterson is 11th, followed by Sean Duhamel in 12th.
Well, I was very glad to see Jeff. I was worried we'd see a lot of spinners on those cold tires, but that really wasn't the case. The only incidents we saw was one driver making contact with another and someone understeering, if anything.
Exactly, Joe. And in results to that sort of wash up the track, it's a very, very easy thing to do. You know, you get into that dirty air, you feel the car start to push a little bit. And if you are really focused in the zone, your brain just sort of goes to, no, I can hold this, I can hold this, I can hold this. And it's only about a millimeter before the wall that you realize, no, I can't. And then you smack the wall. And so very, very unfortunate luck. But that's why we do have a consolation that these drivers will have a chance to come back and fight through.
Now, it looks like Brett Barrett did not grid up. And in fact, he's not in the session. And it looks like he's had a disconnect. His internet did not hold up. So our driver, who was last on the bubble, is not going to be able to take part in this race, most likely, and definitely not going to be competitive, even if he does. Scarali now gets jumped up into the best position to advance. He'll start from 6th on the grid, but he should have a shot getting into that 5th spot.
He should indeed. And Joe, the battle in this heat that I am most looking forward to, though, is in row 2. Frank Nguyen, as I said, really good run last season out at Phoenix, a very exciting driver to watch. And Takeshi Kito, we always talk about if Takeshi's able to get his qualifying a little bit better, he can be in contention. Well, he's 4th in this race, so he's going to be a fun one to watch as well.
I guess in this case, the qualifying not as critical, since those heats really will shuffle you upwards a little bit more. It's every 4 cars, every 5, I guess you could say, that they grid off down in sort of a tiered fashion. But up at the front of this one, it is Alessandro Di Tullio, who sees the iRacing sedan peel off now. He goes immediately. Wow, big jump over his rival, and actually contact right away between Spicer and multiple other cars. Looks like he also hit Takeshi Kita, unfortunately, and J.R. Williams. That is 3 cars out before they even get across the starting line.
Oh, we're going to go back and check a replay out on this. Spicer just had a terrible start, and I think Takeshi just didn't anticipate where he was going. There you can see the contact with Williams, who is fully up to speed, and all 3 of those drivers out of this heat.
An embarrassing mistake turned to a nightmare of a start for Andy Spicer, who was on the front row. So, who does this promote? Frank Nguyen up to 2nd. Horvath is now in the transfer spot in 3rd. Tyler Scarali in 4th, and Neil Alexander, the last one through, in 5th. In fact, we got quite a battle between Scarali and Horvath up there for 4th place, or 3rd place, actually.
We do indeed. The 2 drivers going side by side here. Looks like that's Scarali out on the outside and Horvath to the outside, Scarali down to the inside, trying to hold that off the best they can. Really good stuff side by side here at Iowa.
So the Canadian swings down in front of Tyler, and as they come off of turn 2, they are being chased as well by Neil Alexander. I'm sure he'd love them to continue to battle like this, as that should allow him to pick up some time, but he doesn't need to pass them. Again, Neil is the last driver to advance as they sit now.
Exactly, and he's got about an 0.8 of a second advantage over Dave Peterson in 6th, so he can be relatively content to just sit back and watch and wait this. But there you can see that's a really good close from Scarali onto Horvath. He had to check up. That's going to allow Alexander to get a good little run here. Little bit of a wide exit there for him, but here he goes to the inside.
Manages to get his nose in, and Scarali knows it. He gives him space, but he's got that better banking on the top side. Look at him just stream away down the back stretch, and it was a valiant effort, but Neil's going to have to try again another time.
He is, and that's the give and take you got to do here at Iowa. You get more momentum on that high side like we see a lot of oval circuits, but down on that low line, you will have the quicker way through the corner. We're going to jump back in on the leader here, as this is Alessandro Di Tullio, currently still leading, but Frank Nguyen on a bit of a charge, just setting the fastest lap of the heat.
Absolutely. And Di Tullio, as I mentioned, won at Monza in round 1. This is another track which sees a lot of drafting come into play. We're now side by side yet again with Horvath and Scarali for that third spot. Scarali's on the bottom, and I think he's got the advantage. He had a nose ahead briefly as they head through 3 and 4. Once again, on the low side, but he can't seem to complete the pass, and here comes Alexander, 3 wide.
Oh, this is about to get spicy. Everybody running a different line here. It looks like Scarali's able to get ahead, but that momentum starting to push Horvath forward a little bit. Oh, Tyler doesn't go up to cover him. That's going to give him a good advantage.
A little bit of blinking from Horvath, from Scarali, rather. So hopefully that holds station and he doesn't drop out. Fighting for this podium. Oh, and a big checkup this time. Unfortunately for Horvath. So Alexander is able to get underneath him. He's not sure if he can finish the pass, though. He's already experienced how tough it is to try and make it in front of another car as they come off the corner, and Horvath really rides high.
And that high line proving very effective for Horvath here, doing a good job to keep it up high. Here he comes, though. He's got a good run on Scarali in front. Is he going to dive out to the inside? No, he's going to play it safe here. Wait it out as we come to the line.
White flag this time by for DeTulio, leading this race. Is behind him, Frank Nguyen is only half a second back, making sure to keep him honest at the least. And you can see this battle for third continues on. Horvath back up into that spot, Scarali behind. But up in front of it all, it is the number 20 who wins the second heat of the night. He's followed by Nguyen in second, and then barely ahead in third. It's Horvath. Fourth was Scarali. Fifth was Alexander. Last to be advanced to the feature. Then it's Peterson, Hebert, Duhamel, Spicer, Kita, Williams of our drivers who were able to start this race. Boy, that is a tough day for Spicer, having started on the front row of that heat and now has to race in from nearly the back of the Consolation Race. Next grid for heat number 3. Rod Clenard starts on the pole. It'll be Daniel Kranefuss in second and Aaron Roofs in P3. Matthew Gunderson starts fourth, followed by Rafael Ovando. And finally, on the outside of row 3, it is Barry Cochran.
Behind Barry will be Brett Accord, followed by Guillaume Hard in 8th place. In 7th will be Sebastian Merrier, followed by Christopher Richards, and Caven Norris starting off in 11th, with Stephen Verity in 12th.
Everybody out there pretty quickly, and we're on our way for our 2 pace laps. All right, 2 races in. We've had some interesting dynamics out on track. DJ, what most have you garnered out of what we've seen with this combination in action now?
Well, really and truly, Joe, what I was most struck by was that battle for third between Scarali, Horvath, and Alexander that we were following. It kind of goes to what I was talking about at the beginning. Multiple lines on this track that you can take, and it's just about picking and choosing where you're able to go, when, and what is going to most favor your car at that moment. So passing can be done here. We can see some really, really good battles, but you've just got to be patient with it.
Thing that I noticed that maybe doesn't come across as well on our cameras is the sense of speed that these cars do reach, because they're getting up to 160 miles an hour out there. And while that might not seem as impressive as, say, the real full Indy cars, I have a feeling if anybody sat in one of these going 160 around here, their eyes would be pretty wide open.
I can tell you, Joe, I've gone about 155 around Fontana, which is a much larger track, and I was scared out of my mind. I can't imagine doing it on a less than a mile circuit like Iowa.
And in a quite tiny car, mind you. I mean, they are safe, and especially safe in the virtual world, but these are small little cars. It's got to feel a little scary in the real ones, I'm sure, getting onto an oval and getting them whipped up to full tilt. Let's see if Clenard's brave enough to lead and good enough to lead every lap and take the victory here today as the pace car comes in. The 45 is off, and behind him, Aaron Roofs and Daniel Kranefuss go single file quite quickly. Much cleaner start for heat number 3.
Indeed, everybody taking it very, very easy through here right now. Very high line there for Clenard. He may have even gotten up into the wall ever so slightly, but doesn't seem to hurt him, although Kranefuss looks like he's got a little bit of a head of steam coming on now.
So front half of the field quickly getting in line as we got a spinner in back. I think that was contact with the wall. Looks like Richards and Norris winding up involved in that. Norris, the first one to hit the wall, and poor Richards just finding himself at the wrong place.
Yeah, so we can watch here. Caven goes, just carries too much speed there through the corner, bumps up into the wall, and absolutely nowhere for Christopher Richards to go.
Both of them out of the race, unfortunately. So up at the front, it is starting to become a two-car breakaway. Clenard leading Kranefoos, then it's nearly a second to Roofs in third.
Indeed, and we're going to look at that battle for third. Roofs really trying to do whatever he can.
He's got Gunderson behind him right now. Let's see how hard he tries to fight. I was kind of impressed at how intense the fighting was for that third spot last race, considering all three of them were able to claim a spot in the feature if they just sat tight. These three seem a little bit more of what I expected, which is, you don't have to really do anything to risk the car here. You just kind of have to cruise.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really where the patience comes into a lot of this, Joe. It's a different mentality when you're coming into a heat race format. You want to think about just getting yourself into that feature. Now, that said, as we've said, it is a little difficult to pass, so you do want to try to get yourself into the closest to the pointy end of the grid if possible, but you don't want to commit any overt risks to do so.
He's gained a lot on the back of Aaron Roofs. It's down to 1/10 of a second between them. They're also reeling in Barry Cochran in that 7-Eleven car. As we look at our leaders, still split by about a quarter of a second. Clenard and Kranefoos just running their own race up at the top.
Very much so. It looks like Daniel's not in any sort of majorly aggressive position to be wanting to make a pass here. I think he's just trying to figure out exactly how the car is feeling this close in dirty air, sizing everything up as they cross the line for 5 laps to go. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a move here, maybe 2 or 3 to go.
Maybe a poke of the nose to see what's possible, see if he can shake him off the line. Almost get in a little bit of side-by-side between Gunderson and Roofs that time through turns 1 and 2, but this may have bit Gunderson a bit because he falls back. And here we go. This is possibly a shot down to the inside. It is indeed Daniel Kranefoos. Aggressive move. You called it, DJ. He's up to the pointy end.
And that's a good way to do it there. Now here comes Clenard trying to fight back ever so slightly, but doesn't get it to work. And it looks like Kranefoos has got a better jump off of the line. I don't think Clenard's going to be able to fight back here, but if he can tuck up behind in the draft and do exactly what Kranefoos does with 3 laps to go, he may still have a chance to retain that top step.
How much do you think the setup is playing into this here, DJ? Can you make a car really come to the fore in a few more laps earlier than the one you're up against?
Well, Joe, it's not so much as coming to the fore in that way, but the way to think about it is whether you're setting your car up for clean air or dirty air. If you think you've got a fast car, you're going to run a little bit less downforce. You're going to adjust the dampers to run in that clean air. But if you're worried about running in the pack, you're going to set up a car that's going to have a little bit more downforce. Try to maximize. Clenard there gets down onto that yellow line, and that checks him up big time.
It falls back a couple tenths. It's looking like Kranefoos has control of this one now that it's the final lap. With 1 to go already on the back stretch. We've had, I want to say, our first lead change all night long. Off of the final corner, Daniel Kranefoos wins heat number 3. Clenard takes second. Roofs is in third. Gunderson fourth, and Cochran the last to advance. Ovando, Merriere, Huard, Accord, Richards, and Norris are going to be sent to the B main, which is coming up soon. First, though, we've got one more heat to take care of. The 4th heat of the night. Up at the top of that, it is David Holland. Owen Watts will be in second. Inside of the second row, it's Ethan Oring in third. Byron Daly starts 4th. And 5th is Dave Minato, with 6 going to David Fishman.
In 7th will be Nicholas Collender, followed by Danny Duchesne. In 9th is James Doherty, with Alex Fournier in 10th, and Daniel Burnett rounding out the back of the field in 11th.
So one shy, but we are missing a driver in each of our last 2 heats, so looks pretty similar to what we had before. as Holland takes off behind the iRacing pace car and works their way around. The sun has continued to set, as you can see, so we're pretty much now firmly into the nighttime. The lights have flicked on, and this is what it's going to look like for the remainder of the race as they now come through 3 and 4. This has obviously been a relatively good set of heats that we've experienced. A couple wrecks in both of the races that both heat number 2 and heat number 3 that we've witnessed. Unfortunately, both seems to be in a couple of the cases, actually in all the cases I should say, it seems like if you wind up in a mess, somebody else is going to get tangled up in it just way too easily.
Exactly, Joe. You've got to be very, very careful with these guys. Make sure that you are keeping all of your eyes on an absolute swivel. It is such a narrow, quick track that one little mistake in front of you can lead to disaster.
Ride on board with Byron Daly. Now, Daly I expect to be pretty good because he used to race with the black stripe on the NASCAR side of things here at iRacing. So it's been a while, but he's got to still have at least some chops, I would imagine. As we come off of 4, David Holland is off very early. Green flag is out. Owen Watts tries to come down to cover off the likes of O-Ring. Byron Daly up on the high side, carrying the speed well, and actually Daly gaining a bit of time. Is he going to be able to keep that up off the corner? It's looking so.
Well, and it looked like there that Daly may have been able to avoid some shenanigans down the low side. O-Ring caught a little bit of that yellow line, and here comes Dave Menino with an absolute flyer up to the outside.
So Menino looks like he might be able to do something on O-Ring as well, who keeps hugging the bottom line. Byron Daly still riding that middle to top, and we're looking at 3 wide potentially. Menino down on the very bottom as they swamp O-Ring on either side. They're both going to pass, and they're 3 wide behind them as well. 2 deep.
Oh my goodness gracious, and I thought for sure O-Ring was going to get into the back of Menino, but a perfect checkup. There he is down again. He's going to catch the car, make sure it doesn't drift up too much. O-Ring catches it though, has to fall back courtesy of that checkup, and 4th place is now securely going to be Dave Menino's.
Wow, this is the most intense racing we've seen of any of the 4 heats so far, but it is Holland leading by nearly a full second over Owen Watts, and that's where things heat up behind them. You can see Holland taking the fastest lap of the race. Daly up to 3rd. Menino barely in 4th by the skin of his teeth as O-Ring tries to get back what he lost, and then behind them you can catch glances of Duchesne and Collender fighting for 6th.
You can indeed. You can see just how close they are. Collender was on the low side, didn't exactly work out for him. Now he tries another tact that looks like Duchesne is going high, washes up ever so slightly. That's going to help out Collender.
Collender's got an overlap. They come into 3 and 4, and he's fully ahead. Does he try and drift it up in front of him? No, he's going to hold it low. Will that cost him speed? Yes, it does. Coming back at him, it is Danny Duchesne. He's going to get the nose in down through 1 and 2, but once again, that low line just scrubs off way too much speed.
Almost like they're running a dirt track and trading slide jobs here, Joe. This is absolutely fantastic. Duchesne looks like he's able to hold off in front, but we saw the great run out of Duchesne out on that last corner. Not able to get it on Collender this time. Now Duchesne goes wide, but I don't think he caught that apex just right.
And O-Ring just got by Menino. That's for the 4th spot. Once again, it's those cars that are towards the back of the advancing positions that are fighting the most of anybody here. If Menino's where he is and rides that all the way to the checkered flag, he will get through, doesn't have to bother with the consolation race. Oh, and O-Ring now is the one that's going to drift way high and hold it and not lose a position, but boy, that had my heart in its throat.
I'm sure it had his too. That car getting very, very high and twitching coming off of turn 2. But you can see as you ride on board with him just trying to keep everything nice and collected together. But Menino has now been able to close back up big time. That car looking very, very twitching under the hands of Ethan O-Ring.
Riding on the helmet cam of the number 4. He's still right on the gearbox of Byron Daly, not giving this one up. In fact, he's got a great run, and he's going to be able to poke to the inside. I don't think he's going to have it, though. Let's see what Daly does up top. He's solid, and he's going to start to pull back ahead.
He's going to pull back ahead. Oren going to keep it down low, see what he can do. Another little bit of a squiggle there as we ride on board with Dave Menino in the popcorn position to this battle. He is thinking about trying to figure out where to go. Pokes his nose ever so slightly to the right, get a little bit of clean air on that wing, dives back into the draft of Oren here. Daly, though, still looks like he's able to hold along that outside.
Still side by side as we come to the white flag. Critically, last time, Oren actually beat Daly to the line if it comes down to that, but this time Daly has the shot off of turn 4. Up in front of them, it is David Holland leading the way. There he is on screen, followed by Owen Watts in the 14. As David comes off of 4, he's going to take the victory in the final heat of the evening, with his teammate Watts following him home in second. Third goes to Byron Daly by less than a car length ahead of Oren in 4th and Menino in 5th. From behind there, it's going to be Collender P6, Duchesne 7th, Fishman 8th, 9th to Fournier, 10th to Barnett, and 11th to Doherty. That wraps up our heat races and brings us directly into our consolation race. Now, this is going to be a much bigger field for the evening. And again, the top 10 will advance. On the pole, it'll be Joey Haynes starting up top, with Dave Peterson starting in second position. Rafael Ovando starts P3, with Nicholas Colander behind him in 4th. Julio Palacio will be P5 and David A. Bear in 6. Sebastian Merriere, he'll be P7 with Danny Duchesne in 8th. 9th goes to Galaz, and Duhamel rounds out your top 10.
In 11th is going to be Guillaume Hard, and in 12th will be David Fishman. Behind them, Gonzalo Munoz and Andy Spitzer in 14th. Brett Accord, 15th, with Alex Fournier in 16th. Michael Broomhead comes home in 17th, followed by J.R. Williams, Christopher Richards, and Daniel Barnett to round out your top 20.
This gets into our drivers that ran into accidents in their heats. Tyler Gore in 21st, Takeshi Kita in 22nd, then it's Caven Norris in 23rd, James Doherty after that, followed by Adam Wright in 25th, Brett Barrett in 26th, and Stephen Verity, who we didn't see take part in the heat race, and I don't see him in the session right now. Looks like we'll be wrapping up the field, but unfortunately going to miss the start, so not expecting Stephen to get out on track. We start pacing now. 27 cars, going to be very different from 12 or 11 on track. DJ, how do you think this changes the driver's approach?
Well, I think a lot of these drivers are going to be way more hesitant this time out in the opening laps. If there is an accident and even a bobble in the opening couple of laps where the field is bunched up as it is, that's going to cause massive chaos down the field. So I think the drivers who are starting outside of the top 6 are really going to be thinking about that. But Joe, we talked about how drivers were looking very, very racy even when they weren't in position. I think you're going to see a little bit less of that this time out. If you are safely in that top 10, getting a couple places ahead in the feature race isn't going to help you as much. And so they're going to want to just try to take it easy as much as possible and make sure they see the end of these 25 laps.
Already on the second pace lap now. So with Joey Haynes on point, will we be able to finish there? Will we see some drivers disappointed? It's 25 laps. It's a little bit longer than what we had before, with only 12 that they had to compete. Doubled and then plus a lap. So if you do find yourself behind, you've got time, but not enough. As we come through, and again, we reiterate, there are no cautions at all this evening, so they won't have time to try and catch up through those. Off of the final corner, Joey Haynes waiting for the green. Oh, he holds them a long time, and that actually catches a couple of them out. Looks like it was almost a false start for Peterson and Ovando. Green flag waves, and Nicholas Colander in 4th, trying to slot down in front of Julio Palacio as well. Way up high, Peterson trying to get his speed up. Already a car in the wall in the back. I think that's Duchesne.
I believe you're right, Joe, but everybody else trying to keep this relatively contained. Haynes getting that very good start. Dave Peterson holding off. It looks like Ovando here the best he can, with Ovando and Collender really going at it for that third place.
Yeah, up at the front, Joey Haynes already stretches himself out to 0.6 of a second. You were watching the battle for second with Ovando ahead of Peterson. And a big run, monster run for Julio Palacio, who gets inside of Collender in the orange, white, and black machine. That's for fourth place. He's almost got it if he wants it, but he can't quite drift high yet.
He can't hold on to it, and I can report that Takeshi Kita had a spin coming off of turn 4, so he looks to be out of this race, but we're going to keep our eyes focused right here. Peterson and Palacio absolutely side by side, as almost are the leaders.
Yeah, it looks like the battle for second still going on. Ovando with a narrow margin ahead of Dave Peterson, but Peterson gets a run there in the white machine, ducking to the inside. He's got the overlap as he chucks it into turn 3. He gets a nose ahead, but can he carry the speed off the corner? It's a little bit ahead, but it's not more momentum, and he's already got a car looking to the low side, backing out of it. That is Palacio, who considered 3 wide for a brief moment.
He did, and a little bit of a crossover there from Ovando. Now coming back to the inside of Dave Peterson. Drifts up the track, though. Oh, able to catch it, but that's going to help out. Oh, there's contact in the back.
4 wide as they try to gather the cars up, and that was Collender, who nearly lost it altogether. He falls back to 8th. He's still in a transfer spot. Galaz, Merriere, and Broomhead get by him. Side by side between Ovando and Peterson for that second spot continues.
And look at the advantage of that middle line, Joe, as there, Ovando getting absolutely hung out to dry. Peterson driving by, and Palacio now trying his luck down on the low line.
Palacio manages to get just a wing in front of the 48, but Rafael uses the speed coming off the banking, and then he chops down. He likes that low line now. The line seems to be changing and adapting in this race.
Very much does, and that's what we see a lot of times on oval circuits like this, that it just rubbers in completely different ways than what you would normally expect. But this battle getting very, very good. That's Broomhead now starting to take a look at Julio Palacio.
That's for 4th. He then backs out a little bit on the way into the corner. Gets back into line. We're not even halfway through this thing now. And our last driver in the transfer positions is Guillaume Huard in the 399. He's not being challenged currently, although a lot of the drivers behind him are certainly fighting one another.
Indeed, and Joey Haynes here continues to lead. He's got a gap of about 2.7 seconds. Was able to get around some lap traffic of Danny Duchesne, who had some problems early on.
Side by side, once again, Ovando and Peterson have been going at it hammer and tongs. What'd you say about not needing to fight so hard if you're in the top 10?
Apparently, these folks had different ideas, Joe, as they are putting on a show tonight.
Palacio once again challenging Rafael. And behind him, a little bit of blinking from poor Michael Broomhead. Not sure if he's noticing that on his end. Palacio with a poor exit off of turn 2, which gives Broomhead a shot. If he wants it, he gets above him, but he can't keep it beside him.
And that was a really good move there from Palacio, just almost a hip check, trying to drive Broomhead up the circuit as much as possible and blunt any of that momentum. It's a very good legal defensive move for Palacio, but Broomhead gets a big head of steam on the backstretch. We're going to keep an eye on Palacio here. Doesn't run that same outboard line, but you can see Broomhead weaving this way and that, trying to find a way by that orange and white machine.
So far, I've only lost 2 cars, Williams and Fournier. And then Duchesne is in pit lane for some reason. I'm not sure why. Up on the high side yet again. Broomhead got a little bit of an overlap before he had to dive out of it.
Tried to go for the crossover there, but I think he just took off a little bit too much speed there and wasn't able to get it. But we're side by side. Is Peterson holding off another attack from Ovando.
This fight has been incredibly fierce, but they've kept it together, unlike a few of our drivers in the back. I'm afraid we don't have a replay of it, but Duhamel, Spicer, Richards, Barnett, and Doherty have all wrecked out recently. And Spicer, who remember started way up the order in the qualifying, just is not going to enjoy today because he will not make the feature. Around the outside, Ovando tries to hold tight. Palacio tries to make him work for it as they cross. This is still the battle for second because that's Peterson directly in front of him. Palacio thinks about a move, but Peterson says no.
They get close, and that's Palacio and Ovando.
We knew it was getting a little spicy, and unfortunately for them, it all blew up. So that means that Broomhead is promoted into third, Colander into fourth, and Merrier into fifth. This is the incident. Let's see. He just drifted up off the exit.
Yeah, Joe, and that was really precipitated going into turn one. You mentioned it, that it looked like Palacio wanted to take a look at Peterson in front. He had to check up a little bit. That just threw him out of rhythm, and I think that's what really set the events in motion.
Boy, you want to talk about racing your way into the feature? Tyler Gore started this consolation race in 21st. He is in 8th spot now. By staying out of trouble, the number 7 has got a fantastic shot to make the big show.
He certainly does, and that is exactly the kind of performance we've come to expect from Tyler Gore. A very consistent driver, loves to just slowly but surely work his way up through the field, so massive kudos to Tyler and Blown Training Racing running a great line here.
Fourth place has Colander, Merrier, Galaz, and Huard all in a train. Now, they were a little bit closer together not long ago, but it does appear that maybe now that they see they've been allowed into the transfer spots, they don't need to do that. Second place, Peterson can't get rid of people. Broomhead now is the one that's going to try and overtake, and I think he's done it.
He's got the inside, does a little bit of a drift up the track. Peterson very smartly doing a crossover move. Now he's going to have the inside line. You can see just how high there Broomhead went, trying to get as much speed as he could on the interior of the corner. Goes in here, able to get a nose just on the rear wheel and try to carry more momentum and out through 3 and 4.
If these two wreck, this will just be incredible for those behind, as long as they can avoid them. Waving way down low, Broomhead comes shallow into 1 and 2 as Peterson tries to swing it in from the high side. It gets him up to him, but it doesn't get him past him.
And Broomhead not going up to cover that off. Now that's going to be twofold a strategy move there from him. He doesn't want to give him the draft, and he doesn't want to sacrifice that inside line. But there you see Peterson able to get that inside line away from him. But Joe, this fighting back and forth has allowed Colander to catch up right behind him in that silver and blue.
And not only that, Joey Haynes is a full 5 seconds ahead. Ooh, that looked a little close from Ites. Broomhead nearly touching the left rear of Peterson that time. They got to be careful not to throw this one away because we're down to 2 to go now.
And I think that is right on Nicholas Colander's mind. Ooh, got down a little bit onto that yellow line. That's going to check him up, and here comes Merrier down the back stretch, poking his nose to the inside. Let's see if he can do what Colander could not. Oh, but he has to drift up ever so slightly, and that's going to lose momentum.
Back to single file. So, and Joey Haynes. That was Joey Haynes at the bottom, our leader. He spun off of turn 4 with a lap to go. Dave Peterson is suddenly our pole sitter. And we've got to come back live because Peterson comes off the final turn, and Dave Peterson is going to win the B main. What a surprise finish. Colander second, Merrier third, Galaz fourth, Tyler Gore fifth, Guillaume Huard in P6, Hebert 7th, Munoz 8th, David Fishman 9th, Adam Wright in the 10th spot. Haynes does not even make it to the feature race tonight. Those are your 10 that will advance. Those that will not are Broomhead, Haynes, Accord, Kita, Norris, Palacio, Ovando, Barrett, Richards, Doherty, Spicer, Duhamel, Barnett, Duchesne, Williams, Fournier, Verity, and McLaughlin. Verity is the last one. What a finish. Oh my goodness.
And Joe, that transitions me absolutely perfectly into something that we haven't had to talk about until we get to this A main race, and that is tire wear. No yellows means no chance for a stop here, and it looks to me like what happened in that last race was that he got a little bit too much speed going in through 3 and 4, and the tires just let go. These drivers are going to have to be careful. We are at 45 laps here, and they've got to take care of their tires. If these tires start to go, even if they overheat them, they are very, very want to let go.
Well, we get no warm-up in this one, so it's time to go right into it. Our starting order for this feature race has Connor Wagner on the top spot, Alessandro Di Tullio on his outside. Daniel Kranefuss starts in third with David Holland in P4. Christoph Herbeno starts fifth and Frank Nguyen in sixth. Rod Clenard, P7, flanked by Owen Watts to his outside, and Ethan Lamp behind in ninth with Nick Horvath starting 10th.
In 11th is going to be Aaron Roofs, followed by Byron Daly. Mark McDonald will be 13th, followed by Tyler Scarali in 14th. Matthew Gunderson starts off 15th, followed by Ethan Oring and Owen McLaughlin. In 18th will be Neil Alexander, followed by Barry Cochran and David Menino.
Dave Peterson starts 21st with Nick Colander in 22nd. Sebastian Merriere, unfortunately, not taking to the start. He would have been 23rd. Hugo Galaz starting 24th, and actually looks like he'll start from pit lane even. Tyler Gore from P25, and Guillaume Huard in 26th. Hebert 27th, Munoz 28th, Fishman 29th, 30 car field with Adam Wright rounding them out for this evening. 45 laps for this finale. Now, points were scored for those who did not advance, and they are locked into those points positions. From here, this is for even more points than those that we just saw finish out their night. So your finishing position is where it all counts from here on out.
Exactly, and that's going to be playing into a lot of drivers' minds, but for a lot of guys that aren't used to seeing the front end of the field, this is going to be a bit of a glory race. Do not be surprised if the battles for the front are very, very fierce, as guys who normally aren't as good on the road courses may have a little bit of an edge here at Iowa.
Wagner versus Di Tullio. Who is going to be quicker on the circle tracks? The only time that we're visiting them this season in the PRL Indy Pro 2000 Series. The 51 has control, and he goes early. Green flag is out for the finale here in the PRL Indy Pro 2000 Series. It's a good jump for Connor. Di Tullio is able to get down, but it's a fight for second with Holland on the high side and Kranefuss on the low side.
And it looks like they start to straighten out, but that's a great run there for Kranefuss on the high side. He's got to check up ever so slightly, but find some more momentum mid-corner. Di Tullio down on that low line. Here comes Kranefuss.
Daniel still challenging on that second spot. Holland can't do much about it, being pinched down to the bottom. Excuse me, Holland, or Di Tullio couldn't do much, pinched down to the bottom. They got a lapped car in front of them already. That's Merriere, who did take to the track. He's going to try and pull out of the way and let everybody through.
Tries to get out of the way. This swarm of bees coming up behind him. You can see that battle for 4th, 5th, 6th is absolutely insane. 3-4 wide.
Yeah, that was the likes of Herbeno down on the bottom side with Watts in the middle and Nguyen on the top side. They're going to finally get 2 wide through there. Everybody's still trying to find their positions. More 3 wide racing amongst them. Owen Watts managing to get a nose ahead of all of them. Frank Nguyen going to use the toe behind.
And Joe, I think that was Christoph Herbeno and Ethan Lamp that came together just before the start-finish line. The two bumped, but were able to keep on going. Very, very aggressive move there from Frank Nguyen.
Nguyen trying his best to get up towards the front, but he just can't drift up because Owen Watts prevented him. And again, no cautions in this, so if they want to try and catch the leaders, they need to use every ounce of speed they can to try and get up to them. Right now, they're already 2 seconds back.
And that is not a good sign. We've seen if you are out of this draft that you can pull away very, very quickly. But we ride on board here with Nguyen. Was to the outside, now dives down to the inside on Owen Watts, but has to check up ever so slightly. And now he's got to worry about Christoph Herbeno, who's coming to his outside.
Herbeno has the higher line. Can he keep the momentum up? No, he can't. Look at him start to fall back off the corner. Tries it. And at least he's going to be able to get his wing up to the rear wheels of the 97. But he's going to need more than that to get this done. That ought to do, though. Down into turns 1 and 2. That car is strong.
He really had some good momentum to the outside, and there you see him fully pull ahead. Ahead of them, though, you can see it on the front of your screen. That's Watson Krenfuss starting to trade around for 4th place.
Krenfuss to the outside. Inside is Watts. Down into 1 and 2. Not looking like he's got the slingshot like we saw from Herbino, though. As they continue to fight side by side. We're only on lap 8 of this final event of the night, coming off the corner. This is probably the wildest racing we've seen all night.
Most certainly, and I do have to give a massive props out to the Precision Racing League. They changed to this heat racing format last year for ovals, and it is just proving electric here.
I think it's helped phenomenally. And unfortunately for Watts, that didn't help coming off of the last couple corners because he falls behind Krenfuss and under attack from his teammate Herbino. Can Herbino continue to use that high side move? No, he's running out of track. His teammate almost comes up in front of him.
Ooh, a very scary moment there for teammates, and I think Herbino may have caught a little bit of the outside wall. There's some sparks flying off of the right rear of that machine, and this battle has really allowed for Nguyen to now catch back up. Herbino continuing to go to the outside as they try to reel in Daniel Krenfuss right in front of them.
Oh, washing up a whole lot there. That was Owen Watts. Had to get out of the gas, and Herbino easily sneaks by into a top 5. Now, as all of this has been going on, Holland has caught up to Wagner and has been riding behind his teammate. Now, I don't know if this is formation flying or if this is maximum pace for the 18.
Well, let's ride on board here with David Holland. You can see he is shifting down a little bit there and riding into that high rev limiter, so I don't think that this is necessarily fuel saving, but they may just think that Wagner's got a little bit more speed and he'll be able to pull along Holland.
Don't count out to Tullio. I'm pretty sure he's hungry to make it 2 for 2. Ah, there's a little look to the inside from Holland as Wagner rides a lane higher. Of course, maybe that's just giving some fresh air to that number 18, making sure not to send his teammates sailing off into the outside wall with understeer. Behind them, you're not missing much. That's finally settled down into single file racing.
Indeed, just barely, but it looks like Nick Horvath is starting to take a look at, that is Ethan Lamp for 8th place. That battle getting a little bit spicy, but ooh, here we've got a pass for the lead.
Holland is underneath as Wagner tries to defend. Is this going to be the shot that Alessandro needs to try and get involved? Will he gain enough time on the pair of them as they punch a bigger hole in the air with 2 cars running through? Down on the low side, Holland made a valiant effort. Is it still there? No, it's not.
And there you see Wagner start to chop him off, but that has really allowed for DeTullio to gain back by about 0.2 of a second, so he is right back in the conversation, now starting to fill the wing mirrors of David Holland.
Looks like we had, I think, one of our first accidents. Rod Clenard with a little bit of net coat unfortunately gets bumped to the outside wall. Enough damage that he seems to be done for the evening. Horvath, who we saw have a wild one in the consolation race, sees the action continue. Scarali down below him, O-Ring behind him.
Trying to keep it there, and there you see it's that high line, low line that we've talked about as they come across the start-finish line, flying in a triangle here. Once again, back down to the low side. Ooh, bit of a chop off there. That's a good move.
Oh, O-Ring tries to cross him over, but unfortunately his momentum got interrupted. And behind him, that's Mark McDonald in P15 as well. As they come off of turn 4, O-Ring way too shallow. He falls back off of the likes of Scarali.
And Mark McDonald, the lone Rust Racing driver out here tonight, as he tries to power out around O-Ring right now. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get it. Ooh, they're very close, but he's got some good momentum on the high side.
Holland is underneath once again, and this time he's fully ahead. He's able to get by Connor Wagner, but Wagner right back underneath him. looking to try and use that extra speed, and he's through. Can Holland pull the same move again? Do that dirt track style like we heard DJ mentioning? He does gain, but he doesn't get underneath him.
Not quite able to give that crossover, but now Holland trying to hold the outside line. He's got the crossover at least there. He's going to hold it, but not enough momentum to get it to go. Wagner now stubbornly holding that low line. Little bit of drift. Holland's going to be aware of that. You see both of them separate there, not wanting to get into each other as they cross the line.
Coming close to the halfway mark in this race as they crunch down to the bottom side of 1 and 2. Connor Wagner starting to lose out. His teammate Holland solidly into the lead this time, and this did bring DeTulio into the fray. He is now a mere 2/10 behind the pair of them as we ride on board.
DeTulio can be assured is watching this eagerly, just waiting to see what these two teammates do. I think he knows that he doesn't want to drive too hard here too early, probably taking care of his tires a little bit. You see those micro corrections he's making on the way in that helps the understeer coming on the outside of the corners.
Imagine DeTulio hoping he can pull a Max Verstappen here, watching two teammates wreck each other out and run to the victory. But right now, it doesn't look like he has the pace to keep up with them when they're not fighting. Look at that. He's already fallen 3/10 back.
Well, Joe, that may be something that I talked about a little bit earlier. DeTulio may have tuned his car to run a little bit more in clean air, and he's just struggling when he's got to be faster here through the corners in dirty air. You see a lot of steering lock he's having to put in to try to get that car down to the yellow line.
This is about 2.1 seconds ahead of Crane Foose, another one of our Rust Racing drivers. But fourth place is looking pretty distant from the podium, which has really become the three-horse race that you've been watching here for the last couple laps. As they come onto the back stretch and then work their way around 3 and 4. This has been a race that has had, thankfully, very few retirements. Clenard, Alexander, Colander, and Menino seem to be the ones that have headed into pit lane and have stayed there. Marriere and Galaz have since been in pit lane, but are still running well down the order.
Right, and Joe, I think those were those two guys that started from the pits in the beginning. So those were those lap traffic cars that they were having to deal with early on. But something that these leaders are going to have to take into consideration is they are only about 1.8 seconds down the road from encountering lap traffic in the form of Owen McLaughlin and David Hebert, and that's going to throw a whole wrench into the work. You can see him there on your screen.
Now that's McLaughlin up first in the yellow and black. Where is he going to place the car? Looks like he's going to elect to go high. Oh, but washing up both of our leaders, more so Connor Wagner. He holds on to it. Meanwhile, next up, going to be David Hebert. How quickly are they going to catch him?
Well, we've seen a lot of these lap cars playing this very, very nicely, letting the leaders by as easy as possible. But when you're racing on such a short track here, it can be incredibly difficult. They come up behind Hebert here. Hebert looks like he's going to stay high, give the leaders the way down through the corner.
Ooh, but that pinches the likes of Wagner. Once again, he gets the bad end of the stick. Here with the lap traffic, he's about 3/10 back. Not dire, but I'm sure he'd like to be closer to take advantage of any more cars that they have to lap.
Exactly, and this is where you start to get into the struggle of lap traffic, Joe. We say it a lot. Lap traffic giveth and lap traffic taketh away. Right now, the loser on this is Wagner, but as they start to come up behind some more of them, we may see Holland get caught out, and that could advantage Wagner or DeTulio behind.
Watching the rest of the fields, and there has been a little bit of racing, but the action's just been so good. That's why we've been up front so much. I can tell you that McDonald, Scarali, and Gore, or McDonald and Scarali, I should say, in a nice little fight themselves. They've got Hugo Galaz, who is a lap down, so he's not for position, but he's certainly got a front row seat to the show.
He does indeed, and that's Scarali trying to make a lineup on Mark McDonald. Dives down to the inside. McDonald starts to pinch him. Oh, almost contact there between the two drivers, but they're able to keep everything nice and orderly, but advantage is still going to be in favor of the 216 of Mark McDonald.
Now, Aaron Roofs has pitted in. I don't think they need a scheduled stop in this race, do they?
No, is my understanding they would be able to get through without a stop.
Must have hit the wall or something. As he's taking tires. I don't think that's going to make him all that much faster, but, well, I guess that's a gamble he's willing to take. As he comes back out on track, he's going to be probably 1 or even 2 laps down, unfortunately, after that. Roofs will see Holland quickly in his mirrors, who leads Wagner. And now DeTulio, 7 tenths behind. Since this has calmed down up at the front, DeTulio looking like he can't hang.
Yeah, Joe, you really hit the nail on the head earlier. It just doesn't look like he quite has the speed to catch up behind these two teammates out front. Oh, as you see, they're diving through the corner, passing Aaron Roofs there. That caught out Connor Wagner ever so slightly.
Can he manage to get back ahead? We're less than 10 laps to go at this point. Time's ticking away, and he's running out of chances. Holland, who returns to the Open Wheel Thursday Night Series here and the PRL League, the PRL organization, showing he's still got the pace. And even better, he's still great no matter where you stick him. Could be at road courses, could be at street courses, but even when you put him onto the ovals, that number 18 knows how to fly. Wagner, 2 tenths behind him, starting to regain a little bit that he lost with all those bad habits, or those bad instances, rather, in traffic.
Well, and Joe, this is where what I was talking about at the start of the race, any tire wear issues are going to come into play. If you've been a little over aggressive on these tires, you may have burned them out a little bit too much. That can start to hurt your lap times and it'll make you drift up out of corners. You'll be getting a lot of understeer. So we're going to have to keep an eye with 5 laps to go if either Holland, Wagner, or even DeTulio are suffering from that instance.
It did look like off of turn 2, I watched Wagner really drift to the outside. I'm curious. Let's watch again this time. Let's see how that second car in line handles it. Yeah, he's exiting extremely high off the corner.
And that's not a whole lot of surprise as we ride on board with Wagner here. He was having to really wheel that car in the dirty air, and no matter how good you are with the tires, being in dirty air is going to scrub off a little bit more of the tires than it would normally. Here, we can watch it. Just see the fight through the wheel in the middle of the corner. He's able to keep it low there, coming around the lap traffic of Guillaume Hoyard right there, but still not exactly as perfect as he'd like it to be.
I was going to say, I don't think he had a choice that time. He had to stay low if possible. Let's watch here with a completely clear track and some distance between himself and Holland. Now that does look pretty controlled from on board. It just kept looking scary from my perspective here in the booth.
Yeah, it may be a little bit of just an optical illusion from where we are sat in our vantage point, but crucially, as they cross the line with 2 laps to go, he has about 5 tenths of a second up to his teammate David Holland, and that's going to be a hard gap to reel in.
Well, the Texan will get 1 to go next time by. Kranefoos, interestingly, just took the fastest lap of the race. Well, that'll be a bonus point for him. David, taking the white flag, just has to lead one more time with a half-second gap back to his teammate. And Dave Peterson up ahead, which I don't think he'll even be able to lap before this is over. So probably not going to be a concern. After a long night of racing, David Holland takes the win here in round 2 of the PRL Indy Pro 2000 Series.
An amazing near flag-to-flag win for David Holland. His teammate Connor Wagner crossing behind him in second, DeTulio in third, and Kranefoos and Watts rounding out your top 5.
Holland started 4th on the grid, Wagner on the pole. Something about this team's setup certainly seemed to like this track, with them finishing 1-2, but Wagner, I'm not sure how much he's kicking himself knowing he had the advantage at the start of this race and wound up giving it away. As the pair of them head down towards victory lane, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Iowa Speedway. Round 2 in the PRL Indy Pro 2000 Series saw David Holland taking the victory this evening, with Connor Wagner, who was on the pole, falling behind his teammate and unable to retake the lead, settling for second. DeTulio, who won the first round, was with them for a good chunk of the race, and then towards the end, he just kind of drifted away, but he still claimed a podium in third. Daniel Kranefoos was P4 with Owen Watts in fifth, and Frank Nguyen, for all of our hype for him to climb the order, he finished where he started in sixth. Christoph Herbino was P7, and Byron Daly from 12th to 8th. It's Ethan Lamp in P9 and Ethan Oring in 10th.
Nick Horvath was able to come home in 11th, followed by Matthew Gunderson, and behind them, Mark McDonald in 13th. Tyler Scarali was 14th, followed by Tyler Gore and Barry Cochran. Adam Wright came home in 17th, followed by David Fishman, Gonzalo Munoz, and Dave Peterson to round out your top 20.
Guillaume Huard in 21st was followed by David Hebert in 22nd. These are all drivers a lap down. Hugo Galaz 23rd and Sebastian Merrier 24th. Then Aaron Roos did not put enough fuel in. That's why he had to come in and stop. A rookie mistake there from the 26, got him 25th position. From there, it's DNF's McLaughlin, Alexander, Clenard, Colander, and Menino. That brings us to our podium finishers, including our winner, David Holland. David, congratulations on the victory here this evening. It seems like you and your teammate have sussed something out on that setup, because you guys were just miles ahead of everybody else tonight.
Yeah, hey Joe, thanks. Yeah, it's all credit due to Connor there. Connor Wagner is just a genius there when it comes to the setups. So I basically just turned left and the setup did the rest.
Well, how did you manage to get him behind you then? Because Connor obviously put it on the pole position and then qualified in his heat for the top spot here in the feature. So it looked like he had the speed. Was it just you had the better handle over the course of an entire race?
These things actually do get a little bit interesting to drive, when you're that close behind, the aero wash kind of kicks in. And so I was trying to kind of do some interesting things to get it into fifth, kind of overslowing the entry some, get it into fifth as quick as I could. And the fronts were starting to go away, so I knew that I really had to make a charge at it. And if I could get him behind me for the second half of the race, it'd be really tough for him to get back by. And ended up getting a good run like I was hoping for, and tried it once. It didn't quite work out. Tried it again and ended up getting by him. But yeah, I mean, it definitely is really tough.
Well, I have to imagine this one feels better than the poor end for Monza a week ago. And this also helps your Delta Sport team up in the points as well.
Yeah, definitely. Last week was really disappointing. I really like Monza. I was getting set up for a really a close finish there with Alessandro. And I'm dumb and I have Wi-Fi, but this week I've got a 100-foot Ethernet cord running through the house, so not going to have that problem again. Yeah. So yeah, definitely great for the team. I think we had a pretty good showing overall for Delta Sport today. So really happy about it.
I've been there before as well. Needed to get those really long cords to make sure. Well, congratulations, David. And please feel free to share whoever made this one possible.
Yeah, absolutely. First, just got to thank you guys for the awesome broadcast. It's always really fun going back and taking a look at it. You guys do a great job. And got to thank the team, Delta Sports, and all the team sponsors, Move Up Transportation Solutions, Freedom USA, Race Factory, Unified for Kids, Get Stuck, and Driven Texas. Thanks, guys.
That was David Holland. Victor here at Iowa Speedway. And up next, his teammate Connor Wagner as DJ has caught up with him.
Well, Connor, we just heard your teammate David Holland praising your setup abilities. And I got to say, the two of you put on one heck of a display up there at the front of the grid.
Yeah, it was good fun. I mean, so the setup stuff, all I do is take feedback from the team. So, without them, none of it would develop as quickly as we can, because we're getting feedback from so many drivers and they're all so good that we make a lot of big steps in a really short period of time. Because going into this week, I didn't really know anything about oval setups. So it was a fun time, and I think we top 3, so we pretty much got it nailed. But yeah, it was really good fun. David did a fantastic job. He and I did some practice earlier in the week, and we kind of knew that the tires would start to fall away sometime after the halfway point, and racing would become a lot more difficult. And he just timed it just perfectly and got out in front and held a good gap to the end. So it was really fun.
It looked a little bit like there were a couple of points that Alessandro was going to be able to catch in on you guys. Were you on the radio with each other trying to talk about pulling away, or was it pretty much every man for himself?
Yeah, so we pretty much just did a every man for himself on this one. We had a little bit of, I guess, issues at not issues, not the best word, but at Monza we were trying to play really safe, and it ended up affecting some drivers more negatively than if we just raced each other. So our only objective was to not crash. So yeah, there was really no team radio. The only thing that I was telling David over the comms is that I wasn't going to race him through traffic. So I didn't want to have him feel like he needed to rush through it and maybe could cause an accident or something like that. But yeah, it was just good hard racing.
I'd certainly call it that, and I got to give you guys credit. It made for a heck of a show. But turning our sights a little bit forward, we're headed back to these cars' sort of bread and butter, albeit with a European twist. How do you guys like your chances out at the Nürburgring?
Well, it's going to be a tough track, and I don't think setup will make as big of a difference there as it probably does on any other track. I think there the driver is going to be the absolute most important part. So whoever's putting in the time throughout the next week to learn the track and nail it is going to do really good. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm hoping we continue to hold our form throughout the next few races.
Well, I'll tell you one thing we'll be watching for sure. But again, congratulations on a second, Connor, and anybody you'd like to thank before we let you go tonight.
Yeah, just first off, my wife for giving me some time to play video games and that type of thing, and then all the Delta Sport guys and Delta Sport sponsors. So we've got Move Up Transportation Solutions, Freedom USA, Race Factory, Unified for Kids, Get Stuck, and Driven Texas. But yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Connor. That was Connor Wagner, your second place finisher here tonight. And Joe Peak has now caught up with our third place finisher, Alessandro DiTullio.
Indeed. Alex, it seemed that you were keeping pace with that pair towards the first half of the race, and then you started to drift back. How much of that was them battling with one another, and how much of that was you just losing pace comparatively?
Yeah, I think when the tires started to wear out, I started struggling with the air wash, and it was just pushing the whole corner, especially turns 1 and 2. I think that's where I most struggled, and I mean, it's still a good amount of points finishing P3, so I'm still happy with that.
How much did you and your team fiddle with the setup of this car? Did you do a lot of work to try and really dial it in, or was it pretty good from iRacing's base set for this track?
Connor, the P2 finisher, he worked on it a lot. He's the one that makes the setups for us. And I think he's been doing a really great job with the setups, starting with Monza and here now, and it's been top-notch setup, so I'm really happy with that as well.
A first and a third is a good way to kick off things. Looking off to the Nürburgring, can you return back to that top step, or is that a tough track for you at the GP course?
I still haven't driven it. I will definitely get onto test, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, yeah, the top step would be nice.
Well, great stuff. I'm sorry it couldn't have been a higher finishing position, but as I said, valuable points with a third. Congratulations, and feel free to thank who made this one happen.
Yeah, I want to thank Move Up Transportation Solutions, Freem USA, Race Factory, Unified for Kids, Get Stuck, and Driven Texas. Delta Sport, and also Connor Wagner for the setups. And yeah, good job to David Holland and Connor.
As Alessandro DiTullio, third place finisher here this evening. That's going to wrap us up. And of course, before we take off, I want to give a big thank you to the sponsors of the PRL Indy Pro 2000 series, which includes Simulation Motorsports Affinity. They can be found at SimMSA.net if you want to find out how you can get involved in the world of sim racing. And of course, the longtime sponsor of the PRL, NinjaTrader. Their website is simply at NinjaTrader.com. And finally, for all your sim rig needs, thebuttkicker.com has all kinds of cool products to try and fancy it up. Then finally, thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. We keep a link in the description below. While you look down there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC, because coming next week, we head off to the Nürburgring for the GP course Thursday, April 8th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Hopefully it wasn't too bad of an April Fool's for everybody, but until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.